What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting across from me this week and every week, come on, baby, light my fire. It's Desra.
Well, yeah, I know.
Oh, come
Just
on.
give me a chance to say, let me take you higher. Jeez. And sitting across from me is Brian Paul. He doesn't understand letting a moment sit and rest for a moment.
Do I start over?
No, that's good.
Are you sure?
Well, just go.
I want to take the moment and rest.
Yeah, no, for those of you who are wondering what we talk about before it starts, it's pretty much this.
It's ridiculous. And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we sit around and we talk about an old PlayStation VR game, some older than others.
Yes.
And then we blow the dust off and see if it's worth your consideration. Mm-hmm. Except for this month.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, this is a real old one here. So this month is October. We celebrate October, of course, by concentrating on scary games, spooky games, maybe even horror games.
Maybe. Specifically.
Yeah.
That being said, what game did we decide to talk about this week, Desra?
We're talking about the scariest thing in the entire universe, the door. Yeah, doors are terrifying.
The Door came out very, very recently,
Yes.
September 21st, 2018, by Skonek Entertainment, and you can star.
I can star.
We all can star.
Because, you're in VR, so you're starring your own game. I get what you did there.
$35.
Yeah. And these are also the folks who brought us Mortal Blitz, so...
Skonek Entertainment brought us Mortal
Skonek,
Blitz.
yes.
You can star was a little more difficult to research.
Okay.
Did you find anything about that?
I only found Skonek. This is the first I've heard of You Can Star.
So strangely, even You Can Star's official website is like some subsidiary of like a distribution website of some larger company.
Okay.
It's very strange, but what I did find from that page listing, at least, is that they've done some VR stuff before.
Okay.
Something called The Cube, something called VR Solution for Safety Education, and Blind Catalog VR. They're based in South Korea. They have somewhere between 20 and 29 employees, and apparently this game at one point, or maybe in other territories, is called The Cure.
The Cure. Okay, well...
Instead of The Door.
Thematically, that makes sense.
I wish it was actually called The Cure.
Yeah, that would be a little easier to search for.
Maybe I should have made a Cure reference instead of a Doors reference. All right, so what kind of game is this, Des?
This is a escape the room game.
Certainly.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'd say horror game, but it's pretty much escape a series of rooms.
Mm-hmm. But it's a little bit different than most escape the room style puzzle games.
Yeah,
and here's why.
Okay, I was gonna say
It's like I don't know why.
I had something snarky loaded, but I think we're gonna.
So I mean, when you compare it to games like, say, I Expect You to Die.
Yes.
Every level, every stage of I Expect You to Die is played out somewhere entirely different. First level, you're sitting in a car and you're trying to escape from this plane flying over whatever, and then the next whatever. It's all over the place. You're in a
there are
train.
multiple solutions for each problem.
Multiple solutions, there's all sorts of different things. But this game, you start in one room.
Yes.
And you're looking all around you. And once you get out of that one room, then the door opens up. You move into the next room. But the door doesn't close behind you.
Right, you can go back and forth between the rooms.
Exactly. So basically,
when they want you to.
every room, every new room that you open is basically the last room you were in plus a brand new room.
Right.
And so you're
expanding.
Your area of exploration expands with every single room that you open.
Right. But I do want to be clear before we go any further. When we say you can move from room to room, you can move from one of 3 or 4 different places. You do not have free movement. I would, I guess, gun to my head, call this teleportation, but it really isn't. It's just you can be here, here, or here.
Yeah, you're allowed to walk to different teleportation nodes, I guess.
Yeah.
You basically select one, your character starts walking there, the screen inexplicably fades out for some reason, and then refades in your new location.
Yes.
It's a little strange.
It's very strange, especially for a VR title.
Yeah.
And what's kind of disturbing about that is, like, it looks great. There is a lot of detail in this game. They put a lot of work into the environments, and you want to be able to walk around and explore. But as far as gameplay goes, it's a mobile game. I mean, I could play this on Android.
Yeah, it very much is a mobile game. So here we go. In the very first room, there are no teleportation nodes.
No.
You are standing in one spot. There's nowhere to walk, and you are click turning. I know it's a bad word around here.
With the shoulder buttons.
Yeah, everything about this seems a little wonky.
Yeah.
And you're just spinning around, trying to figure out what works with each other.
You spin me right round, baby, right round.
Nothing but music references today.
Nope.
I like it. And then So you click turning, you're basically teleporting, and I don't know. I don't really know even how to begin this episode. The way we begin every episode. It does have a non-VR version.
It does.
And I got to say that it feels even stranger outside of VR.
Yeah, I accidentally started it up in VR because I don't know if this happened to you, but I had the headset on and I started up the game like, oh, that menu screen looks a little flat, but no big deal. And I went in and so the game started up. You actually have to, at least when I played it, manually go in and tell it you want to play the VR mode. It's because even if you're wearing the headset, unlike every other game I've played so far for PSVR, it doesn't know that you're wearing the headset, or at least
it doesn't ask you.
It doesn't ask you. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, plenty of other games are like, you know, you fire it up without the headset on. It says, "Hey, you need the headset for this." This game just by default starts flat, which is weird.
And what's strange is that in the non-VR version, you're moving, you're looking around with one analog stick, and with the other analog stick, you're like selecting a cursor on the screen.
Yeah.
It feels really, really strange. So at least in the headset, you're moving your head, and that's your selected.
But that's exactly how like the mobile game Escape the Room sort of puzzle games work. Yeah. Is you drag your finger along and like, oh, that highlights, I can touch that. Yeah. So yeah, it's very strange. We've had plenty of games like, well, this, you know, does VR make this game better? I mean, I guess it does, but it's just very confusing. Like, why is this VR?
Yeah, for me it makes it better because, I mean, like you said, the graphics look really nice.
Yeah,
everything's really detailed. Yep. Everything's kind of gritty, and it just kind of, and for me it just kind of works. But I think if they were going to say, hey, we're making this VR game, there were a number of different ways they could go about making it much, much better.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I don't know if we mentioned this, it's only DualShock controlled. It is. You can't use the Move controllers because you really can't interact with anything in your environment that they don't want you to.
Right. Which, as you unlock different rooms, it gets really strange because I said, like in my review, that at one point you see a roll of duct tape sitting there.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, that looks like it would come in handy. And you try to pick it up, and it's like, no interaction icon pops up. And then like you do a few more things, maybe even get to the next level, and then suddenly you're allowed to pick it up. Yes. Which is kind of irritating.
Well, it's weird. On one hand, it makes the puzzles much easier because you only have you can only interact with things that will help you solve the immediate puzzles you're trying to solve. Yeah. But on the other hand, if you're looking for a challenge or if you're looking for some out-of-the-box thinking, you'd like to be able to say, exactly right, oh, there's duct tape there, and there's something there I could use to fix with the duct tape, so I should be able to grab that. You know, even if I end up being wrong, you know, at least give me those options, or giving me you do have an inventory,
but you're never carrying more than a couple things at a time.
No, and the second you use the thing to solve the puzzle, the thing goes away. Yeah. Which I do understand from the game design point of view, is you don't want to, have people like trying things that aren't necessarily going to work or that you don't plan on them. But again, let's go back to, oh my gosh.
What are we talking about? I Expect You to Die?
I Expect You to Die. Woo-hoo. Like I was thinking, I kept saying, I think you should die. I'm like, no, that's not it.
That can't be right.
But they took the time and effort to say, you know what? If someone decides to grab thing X and do thing Y, which we're not planning on, let's come up with something, something for that situation to happen. They didn't do. They just basically said, no, we want you to solve it this way, and here are the pieces to do it that way. Yeah. So the puzzles go from blindingly simple to insanely difficult.
Okay, see, this is really. I didn't want to talk to you at all about this game before we did this episode because I was extremely curious what you thought of the puzzles.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they're completely spoon-fed to you, like because you only have, a very early puzzle is you've got to, there's a basket that you can kind of, you can click on it and says, oh, you can't reach that, and then eventually you get a long stick and something else, and like, oh, I guess I put these together, then I can reach it.
Yeah, and even that, I was like, well, how come I just can't pull it down with the long stick?
How come I can't just walk up and reach up?
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's not that high of a shelf.
Right, how short are we?
Yeah. So there's puzzles that are that simple, and then there are some you will find yourself cursing the existence of 4-digit numbers.
There are a lot of 4-digit numbers, a lot of 4-digit combination locks, keypad locks, all that stuff.
And to me, those are the two difficulty levels. There's stupid simple with the props and insanely difficult for the combinations.
Yeah. So the insanely difficult ones, I found that once I figured out the solution, I was like, that was kind of right in front of me the whole time. How did I not figure that out? Like, it was, for me, it was like, man, I feel stupid because the answer wasn't that far out of my reach or out of my grasp. Like, once I figured it out, I was like, I should have been able to figure that out much, much faster.
There were a couple that were like that did make sense. You know, there was a logic to them that you just had to plow through. But there were some that were so obtuse it was like some kind of Zen riddle to sort out. So this is one. I mean, each level. I mean, I guess there was 5 different chapters or levels.
Yep.
Each one should probably take 20 to 30 minutes.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. If you find yourself taking more than that, dude, it's okay. No one's going to shame you for going and checking out a walkthrough.
I think the whole game took me close to 5 hours. Yeah. So I definitely took my time. I definitely didn't use any walkthroughs. And actually, when I played through the game, there were no walkthroughs.
Right.
So I didn't really get to do that. But it felt good. Again, it felt good when I discovered the solution to each puzzle. I think of the five rooms, the first one is the most well thought out.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I mean, you have, bits of story are being told by the objects in the room, whereas later in the game, it just gets more explicit. Like, you basically just find someone's clipboard that tells you, this is what I did.
Yeah.
Where it's a little more subtle in the first room, and a little more well thought out. And there is a logical sequence to the things you find. But in the other rooms, I think they try to spend more time on creating sort of the shock and horror by bad stuff happening, I suppose, and less on the actual puzzles.
I will say what I really like about this game, and it's probably totally unintentional, because this reminds me of something like the PlayStation 1 era, where like the translation just didn't come across the way it was supposed to, right? Like, so there's all this voice dialogue, and it's so obviously people who speak perfect English reading off of a piece of paper.
Yeah. This was, I mean, the original Korean script was translated to English and then handed to some voice actor with no context.
Yeah.
Just like, could you just say these lines? Like, well, do I know like what happened before? That's okay, just say it.
Just say it.
And everything, even some of the most dramatic and terrible moments in the game are just read very, your main character is basically a scientist. Is very relaxed about the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess maybe we should. The setup for the whole thing is that you're a scientist. Your daughter developed this terminal disease, and you basically decided to lock yourself in your laboratory until you figured out a cure for her terminal disease,
with the help of your lovely assistant,
Clara.
Is
that right?
Yeah.
So part of this whole translation debacle, I guess, is this disconnect that you have between the things that are being said and the things that are happening around you.
Yeah.
Mostly, like, there's one point. Actually, one of the first thing you see in the game is like you're like looking around and there's like a door with like some biological stuff all over it, and then like there's a refrigerator and you're opening things up and you're starting to pick things up and you hear this breathing and you're like, what's over? Geez, there's like a girl like sitting with empty eye sockets, bloody face, and she's just sitting on the bed doing like that creepy like horror movie thing. Where every so often she goes, the neck twitch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, like this is really creepy on its own. But like your character doesn't react to that.
Nope.
Like just thinks it's totally normal. You're like, I should talk to her.
I know. Yeah. A little speech bubble kind of icon pops up.
Yeah.
It's like, you should react to that a little bit more.
Yep. Like later on, you hand a doll to your daughter, and she disappears in a puff of smoke.
Yep.
And your character very calmly says, "Something doesn't seem right here." I was like, "You're kidding me right now. You're kidding me. Something doesn't seem right. I wonder what the problem could be."
Well, here's actually my larger question is like, how bad has a situation before this where he's just like, huh, that's weird.
Right. This is the new normal.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very strange. But there was something about that weird disconnect that I really enjoyed. That like I was like, wow, this is just this guy's world.
Yeah, until I think that's okay until like the very end, and I don't want to do any spoilers, but like everything kind of gets to this crescendo. It should be this big emotional thing, and the lines he's saying are this very like, emotional kind of thing, but it's just read with that same sort of flatness that it really kneecaps the whole story. And I have to say, it's an interesting story. I mean, there are twists. They're not particularly surprising twists, but it's like, okay, I see what you're doing, and this is a compelling story to be told. You know, this scientist's obsession with saving his daughter, and bad stuff happened on the way. Great. It's a great setup for a horror movie or horror game. But yeah, again, it's just kneecapped by this weird voice acting.
I also think that the entire experience is ruined somewhat, without spoiling it, by like the whole final chapter. Like, I just feel like the gameplay is it's just so, I mean, tedious and trial and error, and I feel like almost none of it requires any kind of logic or thinking.
Yeah,
it just feels like the first 4 levels were done pretty well, and then they like kind of forgot how to make proper puzzles by the end of the game.
Yeah, there's one section where, like we've said before, you know, I like the whole grossness thing doesn't really do it for me. But there's one moment when you're in this room and all of a sudden like this really gross stuff is kind of all over the room, and you have to do something to get rid of it. And the first time that happens, like, okay, I can see where this is going to be kind of disturbing, and the stuff you have to do to get rid of the gross stuff. This is weird talking about this without spoiling things, but is kind of disturbing and creepy. What's that? No, this is after that with the things with the eyeballs.
No, I totally remember now. Yeah, this is the trial and error thing I was thinking.
Well, exactly. And like the first time you try one or two, it's like, oh, that's kind of gross and weird and scary. But then you have to do it over and over and over again, and that repetition makes it go from like being this slightly cringy, horrifying thing to just like it's really silly.
Yeah. There's nothing in the environment telling you the proper order to do things in, other than the trial and error of like just doing it and failing and doing it and failing until you finally figure it out by process of elimination. Which is like that's not puzzle solving. Right.
Or if you're like me and I didn't notice one of them, and I kind of like got rid of the other 4, I'm like, well.
If you're like me as well, because that took me longer than it should have. In one puzzle specifically, which we can talk about without revealing the solution, is that there's letters and numbers scrawled on the basement wall, and it's like it looks like they're scrawled in blood, and it's like A equals this, B equals this, and I was like, and that took me the better part of like 3 hours to figure out. I think like 90% of my gameplay was spent figuring this puzzle out. I had paper. Like and we talked about this during our Dying Reborn episode. During Dying Reborn, there was like that whole calorie thing in the kitchen, or whatever. Where like I was like doing math and stuff. I was like, wait a minute, there's no calculator in game. I shouldn't be having to like lift my headset up, pulling paper out, doing math. But yet that puzzle in the basement, I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure I couldn't have done it without pulling paper and pen out.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe you had an easier time with it than I did.
Yeah, that wasn't as bad because I kind of, I don't know, I kind of saw where they were going with it a little earlier on. I mean, they were, but I can see like if you don't latch into it kind of the right direction right away, then you're going to be kind of going on. And that certainly happened to me with some other ones. There was a later one where the code was in a very, well, once you figured out where the code was, it was very obvious where it was. Yeah. But if you didn't notice that, you would have never, ever gotten it.
And that's sort of, I think, goes back to the original thing we said about this, is that the puzzles are all over the place in terms of difficulty. Yeah. Some are literally, the answer's right there in your face, you just have to see it, and some of them require a lot of time and effort to figure out.
And there are a few that are really clever.
I thought so.
Yeah, there was a nice body parts code.
Yeah.
Let's call it that. That was that was one I felt really, a good puzzle game. It's challenging, and then when you figure it out, you feel smart. Yeah. And that was one of those ones like, oh, I figured it out, and I'm clever. A bad one is just it's so obtuse and weird that you just smash your head against a wall, and if you do finally get it, it's just like, I don't even care that I got it. I just want to move on with the game.
Yeah. There are collectibles in this game. There are journal entries. There are actual reasons to go back and play it again. And of course, once you've figured out the puzzles, you can blast through the whole thing in just a few minutes.
Well, I found almost all of them my first playthrough.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that difficult. So I saw that. And also I was reading, there were multiple endings. Because I found almost all of them the first time through, did I end up on the one main ending?
I don't know. In fact, there to this day still, there are 2, I need to go back because there are 2 items
Okay.
that I haven't found, but I found all the journal entries my first time.
Yeah.
And so it luckily on the menu screen, it does say, you can select the chapter individually, so you can just like go right in and like be like, okay, here's the thing that I didn't find, then you're done.
Yeah.
Move on out. So it is possible that maybe there's an ending we didn't see because we haven't quite gotten everything yet.
I wonder if it's the same because I'm only missing 2 also. I wonder if they're the same ones.
So my question is maybe it's not a question, it's a statement. I don't care about the ending because by the end, the story, I didn't really care about the story.
Yeah.
For me, it was all about the scare factor, the puzzles, and I think just the experience of getting through it. But the story itself is told, outside of some dialogue sequences, told through almost comic book style 2D panels.
Yes.
Which doesn't look anything like the art style in the game.
No, totally different art style, totally different art direction. It's nice. I like them.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to fit.
Yeah, it is a little weird.
So I'm like, oh, do I get to see more of that? If I find the last 2 items,
right.
I don't care about that. Not really.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that there's it's only done with DualShock 4.
Right.
Head tracking to select items.
Oh yeah. Oh, so yeah. Let's talk about that. So as we mentioned, there's some items that do work, or some items that don't, and then you come back later and they do. So you find yourself doing a lot of this, just like scanning around, like, oh, that's highlighted. I can interact with that, which is a mark of not great gameplay. If you're just kind of like, I'm just kind of moving around to see like, oh, I can use that now. So that must be a clue. And there was one situation where actually somehow a drawer opened when I shouldn't have been able to. Yeah, I know.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a thing that I now know, having played the game, that you don't need till chapter 5. Somehow, in an earlier chapter, I was able to open a drawer, and then see the thing that was in there, and highlight it, but not grab it, because I wasn't supposed to use it there.
So interesting.
And I was just like, how? So I was kind of obsessed with like, okay, well, the rules of the game so far is that if I can interact with it, I need to use it. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't. I could interact with it to the point where I could open a drawer, and inside the drawer was a thing. And yeah, it was just very strange. Like the one time the whole thing sort of broke, I was so obsessed with, or had been trained so much that like, okay, I need everything I can see, I need to use. And so in this one case where that wasn't the case, it really threw me for a loop.
It's understandable. In fact, I'd love to maybe agree with you when it comes to like the whole head tracking, like just scanning around the room looking for the icon to change. But in all fairness, some of my favorite games of all time, and I'm sure most everybody knows this at this point, Lucasfilm point-and-click adventures.
Sure.
When like you walk into a store and you're like, look at all the items. I'm like, I wonder if I can pick up all these things, or if I can buy all these things and put them in my inventory and use them later. And then you're just kind of like scanning, like using that big cursor and like going all around, the 2D scene and trying to see if anything pops up. Pick up lantern or whatever. And so like it kind of brought back those kind of memories. Although using a mouse to do it and using your head,
point. That is my point. Yes.
Are radically different.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people out there that have complained about different games that give them neck strain.
Right.
And I will say that like if you want to play this, if you want to blast through this entire game in like 1 or 2 sittings, there's a high probability that you will experience a little bit of neck strain from this.
And that's exactly the point I was going to make. Yeah. So it's fine when you're going with your mouse or your cursor or something like that. But if you're in a completely 360-degree 3D space, and you have to go like this, okay, and then switch to the next room, it's a lot less fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, let's see. I just want to make sure we didn't forget anything here.
The price.
Well, the price. Yeah. It's $35.
Yeah.
That's a tough pill to swallow, I think.
It's a thing.
How much do you think this game is worth?
Well, is this something that we should bring up during the rating, or?
Well, do you want to rate this game?
Yeah, that's all right.
We're going to rate this game.
All right. So our rating system is pretty easy to understand. One is, yes, you have to buy this. If you have a PSVR, it should be in your library. It's one of the best games of the system. It shows off the best capabilities, etc., etc., etc. 2 is, yeah, sure. If it's a genre you particularly like, or maybe if it's on sale and you get some money burning a hole in your pocket, yeah, absolutely pick it up. We're not going to make fun of you. 3 is, no, do not buy this game. Friends don't let friends buy crap, and we need to vote with our dollars and let these developers know that we will not accept this kind of treatment. So 1, 2, or 3. What do you think?
I mean, I'm always biased on these things. I'm always biased because I love scary games.
Yeah.
Right. You know, we talked about The Exorcist last week.
We did.
And that game, you know, even though since our episode last week, the developers have patched a lot of the bugs we talked about.
They got right on that.
They really did. They were right on top of it. We're very happy that The Exorcist is a better game. By the way, I now give it a solid 2. Do you agree with that?
In theory, I do. If they fix the problems we had with it, I would absolutely say it too.
Absolutely. Because it still has issues that they're not going to fix, I'm sure, like
the basic conceit of how you move around in the world.
Yeah, the controls. But anyway, let's get back on topic. But The Exorcist is, I thought, a great experience, and horror game fans should experience it.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking the same thing about The Door here, because The Door gave me a bunch. There were some good jump scares. There was the environment was really, really creepy, and I enjoyed every minute that I was in it, even when I was like, you know, hitting my head against the wall trying to figure out a stupid puzzle with pen and paper.
Yeah.
I was like, why am I still doing this? I was like, oh, because I love being here.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to figure this out so desperately. Because I love horror. And because I apparently love, I don't think I ever in my life thought that I loved escape room puzzle games. But the more that show up on PlayStation VR, you know, I love 18 rooms or 18 floors, and I expect you to die.
I love 4 rooms.
Well, the 2 currently are pretty good.
No, that's a movie.
Oh yeah, it was. Right? See, you can give me all the time in the world, I still won't get it. So because this game checks so many boxes for me, it's an easy 2. It's kind of the definition of a 2 for me, because $35 is just way too much for what it actually offers.
Yeah.
But it's creepy enough. The puzzles are interesting enough, and there was, I want to say episode 4 specifically, puts you in like a really disturbing place. And I was like, this is just dark and creepy, and I love it. And so it, you know, checks a lot of boxes for me specifically. It's too much money even for me at $35. At $20, I'd say, you know, horror fans need to play this. And actually, and I think I could even be convinced to push it closer to a 1 if there was like full locomotion and they really let me explore like the recesses of like this crazy laboratory, and really let me just feel like I was, you know, more Resident Evil 7ing the surroundings. But instead, you know, the click turning and the select here to walk here, it just all feels very on rails to me, and more so than an escape room should be. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely a solid 2.
Yeah. I'm going to back you up on a 2. I think, you know, before I go on to talk about that, like an escape the room game, I think it sounds counterintuitive, but if I had free motion in that one room, it would feel more claustrophobic.
Far more claustrophobic.
Right? Because I'm pinned to this one section, it doesn't feel so bad that I can't go in it. But if I could actually have free motion in that tiny little room, it would feel even more claustrophobic, more terrifying, and be even scarier. So I think that's a missed opportunity. You know, this is a VR game with, like I said, like mobile game gameplay. Yeah. Which is not great. However, I really enjoyed the game. I think, you know, out of the like, for me, it's a more believable, scary scenario. You know, obsessive father who's a scientist does terrifying things to save his daughter. Great, that's a great conceit. You know, the world they build is really great. It looks horrible and dirty and fantastically awful. But yeah, there's the gameplay itself. You know what? I would agree. If we add some kind of free motion, if we add some kind of hint system for like the really, really tough ones, because man, there's going to be people who would just like, you know, honestly, if I didn't have to finish this game for this, after the 3rd or 4th of those 4-digit puzzles, I would have tapped out, because it's just, you know, not worth the frustration. But, you know, maybe some kind of little hint system, or based on a timer, it's like, hey, this person has done 15 minutes without making any progress. Maybe we'll give them a little heads up. And then the price. That, I think, for me is the deal breaker. That's it is a $20 at max. I think this is what this this game is worth, because you don't have that ability to, it's not a huge environment with a lot of space to examine. It's on the rails. It's 5 rooms, I think, total. Yeah, that sounds right. And yeah, there is definitely not $35 worth of game here.
There's not. It's and I think it's again, going back to my original review. It seems like at the end of the game when you realize, oh, this is all it is.
Yeah.
It almost feels like the lights came up like on stage, and like in the whole set of the play is revealed.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, like that's all it is.
Yeah. It's
like how can you be charging me $35 for such a limited amount of environments, a limited amount of puzzles, limited amount of gameplay? It does feel, again, I'm actually surprised that this wasn't a mobile game originally.
Yeah.
It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, so for a concrete example of like a game, a series that does it so much better is The Room, which is a mobile game, and it involves like basically manipulating these objects and finding all these hidden levers and stuff like that. I've been saying forever that I'd love to see this in VR, and this is like the polar opposite of the puzzles in The Door. The puzzles make sense, and there's multiple ways to explore and kind of move things around, and you've got to pick up stuff from other places, and just kind of there's just much more freedom, which is weird to say. There's much more freedom in a mobile game than there is in this VR game. So yeah, I guess that's my recommendation. It's a 2 if you really, really love horror, and this comes down at a great sale. Pick it up, but I can't give this a 1.
Oh yeah. No. In the way I said I'd give it a 1 is never going to happen.
Yeah.
So this is by from both of us a solid 2, and that price does have to be under $20. I don't think any more than that is really going to be worth it for most people.
Yep.
Okay. I guess that pretty much wraps up another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR.
Save your money, go buy The Room.
Oh yeah, no, I guess that's a thing. Probably much cheaper.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
So is this Halloween time?
Well, I mean, it might be the last bit of October, but it may not be the last bit of spookiness.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. You never know. We might surprise you next week with another scary game. We might. We might just do it all through November too.
Or it might be a game that's just scary to play.
Like that, yeah. That's a lot of those. So in the comments, make sure you let us know what other games you want us to play. That's always very important. The list is ever long at this point.
Everlast?
I don't know. Nope. I don't know. And also, we'd love to know what you think of The Door. I always want to call it The Room.
I do. I really, really do.
Let us know what you thought of The Door. Let us know if you thought the puzzles were really difficult, if you were sick of those 4-digit combinations as well. And because we're, again, always curious to know what you think.
Just give me a 5 or a 3.
Just mix it up a little bit. Yeah, no, they like the number 4.
And just who like keeps their combinations like that? Like, if I want to leave a note for myself, I have a notebook or something. I don't scrawl it in. Well, anyways.
As always, I'm Brian Paul.
I'm Desra.
We'll see you next week.